What's going on, everybody? Today's going to be a quick little project where we're going to modify our floor to blow air onto our transmission. The other quick little addition we're going to do is put some sort of blocker right here so air won't hit the tire. In the wind tunnel, as well as CFD and everything, anytime you can block the front face of a tire, it's almost always a benefit. So we're just going to knock out those two little projects in this video. Alright, so let's say this is our transmission, coming off like this. I have an MT82 out of a V6 Mustang, and what we ended up doing, if you saw our last videos, we just ended up building a flat floor under the whole entire car. The problem is, if you look at the bottom of the MT82, it actually has these like ribs in it. And those ribs are basically heat sinks that air is supposed to kind of blow across to control the temperature of the transmission. Putting this flat floor under it, no air will be blowing across the transmission. So what we're going to need to do is practically cut little vents in the floor. So what we're going to do is cut some slots at angles like this. So that way when the air coming under, the rest of the splitter and everything up here, when the air comes through a little bit, just the width of the transmission will get sucked in. But, towards us and away from us in 3D terms would still be perfectly flat. So that way we can get a little bit of airflow across the transmission. This is a much more cost-effective and should work fine, as opposed to going to an actual differential cooler with a pump and all that stuff. So, because that's a project, a lot more money. You need the pump, you need the heat exchanger, any ductwork, hose, all that stuff. So, doing this should be fine for that. And then our little tire blockers down here. When we were in the wind tunnel, we have two examples of these, where one was on the Tie-Speed car. We put little blockers in front of the front tires, and then when we were in there with the E36, kind of the same deal. So the M2, how do I want to draw this? So here's like the top of the hood. It would come down, there's like the fender arch or whatever, but the bumper would kind of come in, and like here's the splitter here. This probably looks terrible. This would be like the headlight. I hope that kind of makes sense. And the tire was basically, well, technically it would go under the car. So the M2 had a situation like this where the splitter was kind of wider than the tire. Let's say this is the tire. We ended up putting kind of like a low but wide, almost like a big gurney flap on the trailing edge of the splitter, just in front of the tire. I'll put a link to that video up here. I quickly just made something out of foam to put on the end of the splitter, and we ended up getting something like 40 or 45 pounds at 100 miles an hour, which is pretty substantial. And then the other example, the E36 M3 that I went with, the splitter wasn't as wide. The splitter, let's kind of start over a little bit. So there's the tire. The splitter on that one was kind of not quite as wide as the tire, but the tire blocker we put on kind of went up higher, but it was much skinnier. I hope all this is kind of making sense a little bit. So it was just a different shape, but kind of served the same purpose. But that one, if I remember right, that one was also around 45 pounds of downforce at 100 miles an hour. So anyway, two examples of wind tunnel results where blocking the tire was a big benefit. The drag gain, you did gain some, but the overall efficiency of the car went up. So that's the big one. So our fronts are kind of taken care of, but the rear, as you can see, we kind of have a whole bunch of area left. I'm going to do something real quick just for this weekend for Lime Rock. Then I might kind of do something a little more shapely, I'll call it, out of carbon. down the line. But yeah, so that's the theory behind the two things we're going to tackle today, and yeah, should be a pretty easy project to knock out. All right, so we're in my trim shop. You can see the mark right here and here. And what we're gonna do, we only need to come in about 1.5 inches, about 2 inches on the other side, because believe it or not, the engine and transmission is actually offset. Something I was almost thinking about doing, taking an offcut. This is the upper element of our Apex 12, and almost trying to, like, if I cut this out and in and then mounted these where this cutout piece is to direct air up to the split, or I'm sorry, the transmission, that would be kind of cool, because I have, anytime I make a wing, I end up with these little like 1-2 inch extensions. Like here's the upper flap of our Apex 15, there's a fulcrum offcut, so it'd be kind of cool to utilize them, but that's a little bit, I think I just wiped carbon dust on my face. A little bit too involved right now. The race is in 2 days, and I got a bunch of other odds and ends I got to do. So right now we're just going to kind of cut the flat floor into almost a louver. So we're just going to kind of knock that out real quick. This tape just happens to be 3/4 of an inch, so I'll probably do 3/4 inch gap, 3/4, 3/4, all the way. So this is something I kind of, so here's a little 3D printed tool that I made to help me scribe lines. This one just happens to be 1.5 inches. I made inside dimension and outside dimension ones right there, but they all work about the same. So you just put your Sharpie in and just scribe your line right where you need it. So I'm going to cut out the blue, and what's carbon will stay part of the floor. So these are pretty cool. I'm going to cut this with a basic jigsaw. You can use a fine tooth metal blade for cutting like aluminum or anything. I have this little carbide grit blade, which is a little bit more robust for cutting carbon. But yeah, just a regular fine tooth blade would work as well. The last thing I gotta remember is we're upside down right now. So what I'm gonna do is tilt the blade at a 45-degree angle. The front is this side, so the air's coming this way. So I'm gonna cut each line kind of this way. So that way it kind of acts as a little bit of a louver to kind of get air. Again, we're upside down, so the transmission's actually here. You know, just make it flow a little bit better. Alright, so I got all my lines cut. You got to remember, since these are drilled, cut on an angle, I can't just kind of cut straight down and connect the tops. It won't, you know, cut out properly. So once it starts, then just kind of drill sideways. And then I'm going to have to get in here with one of these. This aerosol blade has the carbon tip on it. It's a little bit too big to get in that quarter hole. So like I was mentioning earlier, this is just like a fine tooth regular metal blade. We'll be able to get in there and finish cutting these out. Alright guys, so here it is, kind of finished up. We'll wipe the Sharpie off of it. I don't know why, because it literally goes 3 inches off the ground. But there you go. Got a nice little built-in louver. That simple, that easy. Kind of like everything on this flat floor. I'm just going to do the other half off camera because it's the exact same, and then we'll jump on those little tire blockers. Alright guys, so there you have it. You know, they line up pretty good, gives me a nice little vent. We're filming from what would be like where the transmission sits. You know, so the air will kind of hopefully come up into this and blow across the transmission. So yeah, I'm happy with how these turned out. And then if you look at it, it's kind of cool how it almost looks like, if you look on a Formula 1 car, the rear tires here, they have like slots cut into the floor here. They kind of use it for directing air around the rear tire, which, Alright guys, so floor is back on to mock up our tire blockers. Obviously just got some cardboard here, nothing special. I'm going to make something kind of go up a little bit higher. Just kind of screw it into the pinch weld back here. Come down, it obviously cannot be part of the floor since the floor needs to come off, but kind of just hanging down to almost touching the floor should be pretty good. This should be pretty easy. I think what I'm going to do is just kind of use this fold in the cardboard. Use that fold on the inside. Might be a little hard to see. I'm going to kind of close it off, but leave enough space for the exhaust. What I'm going to do is trace this. That's all the further I can go. So that way, what I'm going to do is just kind of add, you know, I know my flange will be, whoops, let me give myself an extra, all I need is about 1 inch. I need that whole flange. That's about it. So I'm going to cut this out and then cut it out of a sheet of carbon. I take that back. I'm just going to use that sheet of aluminum I got sitting right there, just because this is going to be taken off. I don't want to waste carbon on it. Alright, so there's my makeshift tire blocker just for this weekend. You can see how flimsy it is. So once I get to the track and get set up, I'm just going to tape this little gap right here, which will kind of tie in this bottom. Yeah, keep in mind this is just for this weekend. The other little thing I'm going to do is put a set of our splitter biscuits underneath the very front outer edge right here. You know, so I'm not really worried about braking since it's behind the front axle. Should be fine. It's not like the leading edge of a splitter, but when the car rolls, it's going to get pretty close to the ground. So that'll just kind of help, you know, preserve that leading edge underside of the splitter with that scuff plate on there. Done. Alright, so the car is on the ground. This is the first time it's been on the ground in since late last year, I think. But yeah, it looks pretty cool. We're gonna double check our measurements. We're not gonna take these quite accurately, because you can see when I cut off the little down part of the fender, see how much this fender moves, which means this measurement moves. But if we go to the front, should be 17 inches, and damn, it's like right on. So that's cool. I measured the rake of the floor, pretty much dead on at that 1/2 inch across it. This rear, 23.5, and we're pretty straight. We might be up 1/8 in the rear, which, shoot, if this thing was full of gas, it would probably be, you know, come down that 1/8 of an inch. So yeah, because we're like right on and time is so tight, even though I did shocks all around, my ride heights are good enough where I think I'm going to forego corner balancing it. My ride heights are good, you know, I should be okay enough. We'll need to give it a quick front end alignment. I'm going to do a lime rock alignment. If you ever been to lime rock, it's, what is it, 7 rights and 1 left. So what you'll do is kind of take camber out of the right side, so you'll be a little bit slow around that 1 left-hander, but it'll give you a little more grip around all the rights. So yeah, going to do an alignment real quick, and I think we're looking good. Got a few hours left today to kind of do some odds and ends, load up, because we're leaving first thing tomorrow morning. Alright guys, here we are outside. I'm getting ready to wash it just because you can see it's filthy. Driver's side is a little bit easier to do for whatever reason. The brackets just line up like perfect. This side took, I don't know, maybe an extra 30 seconds to put on, but it's still only about a minute or two. Put the splitter on just in case. I just kind of wanted to do one dry run, I guess, to get everything, make sure everything works. Oh, you can see I did have to put these 2x12s under the end because it's so tight to get that angle for the floor like up and in that honestly just this little 1.5 inches right here gives me enough to make it work. So no special tools, no nothing. Same thing with the diffuser, although that stays on. Splitter goes on with no tools. So yeah, I mean, I'm super happy with how everything turned out. The one thing that has me, I guess, the most nervous is if you look down and in there, the exhaust tip is right there, and it exits like while it's sitting there idling, air, or I guess exhaust gases, hit the side of the tire a little bit, and that has me a little bit nervous because I can actually overheat the tire. So let's see, I guess I should like throw myself under the bus now just in case anything does happen. Worst case scenario, what I can do at the track if it is overheating the tires, but you got to think, once the car is moving and all that extra air is coming through, I don't know, it's going to be close. I think there's enough distance to the diffuser. I'm going to bring some sheet aluminum with me in case I need to put heat shields anywhere. So yeah, overheating the tires from where the exhaust dumps is one concern. I guess it's kind of my only real concern. So let's see. Yeah, wash it. I did some odds and ends. I don't know, I feel like I'm rambling just because, you know, this is the first race, a little bit nervous, shaking out all the new stuff. What if I left something loose? But you know, I did the brakes, did the brake bleed, did a nut and bolt across the whole car. It's like 95 degrees today. So yeah, so I think that's about it for this one, unless you want to, you know, watch me wash the car. But yeah, as always guys, thanks for hanging out. Please hit that subscribe button if you want to keep up to date and see how we perform in the race coming up. As always, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you guys in the next one.